Hi and welcome to this screencast on testing your code. Today I'm going to talk about how you use assertions and how you can test a function using a unit test. An assert statement is a little line of code that checks if some condition is true. If the condition is true, the assert statement does nothing, and if the condition is not true, the assert statement will halt your program and stop. And this is quite useful for making sure that an input or an output is as you would expect it to be. So you can use assert statements to check that some conditions are true and make sure that your program will stop if these are not true. Now, for example, let's say I have a program where I have a variable called x that has the value 7, and now I create a new variable y that has the value of x squared. After doing this, I might expect that the value of y is a non-negative number. It must be 0 or positive, no matter what value x has. So I could write assert y is greater than or equal to 0. And since this is true, this line of code is going to do just nothing. So if I run the code, I see that my lines of code is run, and the assert statement doesn't stop the program. Now if I change the value of x to, for example, 0, again the assert statement will do nothing. So this condition should always be true, but it could be, for example, that x was a complex number, for example 2 times I. Then if I run the code, we can see that the assertion will fail, because now y is equal to -4. So putting in this assert statement will make sure that the program will stop right here and not continue with this wrong value of y in this case. Now you can use these assert statements inside your code to check that certain conditions are met as your code runs, and to make sure that the program will halt if some condition is not met. Another way that you can use assert statements is to create what's called a unit test. So in a unit test, you test a unit of code, which is usually a single function. And the way you would do it is you would create your function, and then in a separate script you would create a number of tests that call your function and make sure that the input and output are correct. Now let me show you how you can do that. Now let's say I want to create a simple function called squareMe that returns simply the square of its input argument. Now I can save my function, and I can test my function manually in the command window. So I could write squareMe of 2, for example. I get the output 4. Now if I want to test my function thoroughly, I can create a unit test. So I create a new script where I write a number of assert statements. I can write assert squareMe of 2. That should be equal to 4. And I can have a couple of those. For example, squareMe of 7 should be equal to 49. Or squareMe of 0 should be equal to 0. Now when I run my unit test here, it does nothing, because all the tests pass. None of them fail. So that's good. All my tests have passed. If I had a bug in my code, for example, that could be an extra little minus here, then when I run the unit test here, I can see that one of my assertions fail. Now I can go in and check, is it the first one? No, that one passes. Second one, that one fails. Right, and then I can see which ones have failed, and I go back and check my code and correct that. This is nice to have this test script here, because then every time I change something in my code, I can rerun all my tests and make sure that they all still pass. So now I fix my bug, and I can run my tests, and they all pass.